A silent silver lockdown has begun, and when the world finally notices, it will already be too late. Right now, nations across the world are quietly restricting silver supply, tightening exports, and secretly building reserves. No announcements, no warnings, just silent moves behind closed doors. Industries are panicking, inventories are shrinking, and governments are preparing for something they refuse to talk about publicly. This is not a theory. It is a global shift already happening in real time, and almost nobody is ready for what comes next. Today, we uncover the silent silver siege, and why the world's most powerful countries are racing to control the metal that controls the future. This is the story you were never supposed to hear. Let's begin. For the past decade, silver has quietly slipped into a crisis. Not the kind you see on headlines, but the kind that starts deep underground, inside government vaults, industrial warehouses, and restricted mining reports. Something is happening. Something governments are not talking about. Something that investors are not prepared for. A silent silver siege is taking place. A coordinated global tightening of silver supply. Countries are restricting exports, quietly increasing their reserves, and competing with each other for future control of the world's most essential industrial metal. Most people think silver is just a shiny investment. They are wrong. Silver is the backbone of solar panels, electric cars, 5G towers, AI hardware, military systems, satellites, and medical technology. Without silver, the world would not just slow down, it would stop. And right now, the world's biggest powers are fighting to hoard it. This is the story of how the global silver siege began, why nations are restricting supply, and how this crisis could reshape the world economy. Part 1. The world wakes up to a silver reality. For years, analysts predicted a silver shortage, but no one took it seriously. Governments focused on gold, investors focused on crypto, and the industrial world kept consuming more and more silver without thinking about how fast reserves were disappearing. But around 2022, the numbers started to look dangerous. Silver demand hit all-time highs. Mine production stayed almost flat. Industrial consumption exploded due to solar and EVs. Silver inventories in major exchanges began to shrink. At first, it looked like a temporary imbalance, but then something unusual happened. Countries began quietly adjusting their import and export laws. Mexico, one of the world's largest silver exporters, hinted at limiting raw silver shipping. China launched record-level silver buying programs. India's silver imports skyrocketed. European countries began securing supply for renewable energy targets. The message was clear. Everyone suddenly needed silver, and fast. Part 2. Why silver is becoming the most strategic metal on Earth. To understand the silent siege, you must understand the new role of silver. Gold protects wealth, but silver builds the future. Here's what governments finally realized. 1. Silver is critical for solar energy. A single solar panel requires around 20 grams of silver. Countries planning for green energy independence need massive amounts of it. 2. Silver powers electric vehicles. Every electric car uses 50 to 80 grams of silver. More EVs, more silver demand. 3. Silver is irreplaceable in electronics. Laptops, phones, batteries, satellites, rockets, all need silver. 4. Silver is essential for military technology. Missile systems, radar, night vision, aircraft, all depend on silver. 5. Silver supply cannot expand quickly. Unlike gold, silver mining cannot just ramp up. Most silver is produced as a byproduct, not a primary metal. So when demand grows fast, supply simply cannot keep up. The governments finally realized that the world is moving into a dangerous imbalance, a shortage, a supply war, a strategic resource battle. The age of cheap silver is ending. Part 3. The first signs of the silver siege. The siege didn't begin with an announcement. It began with silence. Countries didn't reveal they were hoarding silver, but their actions exposed everything. China's silver imports surged to the highest levels in over a decade. State-owned companies began buying directly from miners. Why? Because China wants to dominate solar production and EV manufacturing, industries that depend on silver. India's silver imports exploded after 2023, reaching record highs. Experts called it panic buying. But it wasn't panic, it was preparation. Russia. After facing sanctions, Russia shifted its mining strategy and increased silver accumulation, redirecting production away from Western markets. Mexico, responsible for nearly 25% of global silver supply, hinted at new mining controls and export limits. Europe. Countries like Germany and the UK began planning long-term silver supply chains for green energy projects. One thing became clear. Nations were no longer treating silver like a commodity. They were treating it like a national security asset. Part 4. The lockdown tactics. How nations are quietly restricting silver. This siege is not loud. There is no global announcement, no official ban, but the tactics are clear. 1. Export restrictions. Countries are reducing raw silver exports to keep more metal inside their borders. 2. Strategic reserves. Governments are building stockpiles, just like they do with oil and gold. 3. Industrial prioritization. Nations are giving local industries priority access to silver, cutting out foreign buyers. 4. Silent accumulation. Central banks and state-owned companies are accumulating silver through private, off-market deals. 5. Mining control. Governments are increasing regulatory control over silver mines. These moves are not random, they are coordinated, and they point toward a future where silver becomes the next strategic weapon, just like oil was in the 1970s. Part 5. The coming shock, when the public finally realizes. Right now, most investors have no idea what's happening. They think silver is stagnant, boring, slow-moving. But behind the scenes, inventories are falling. Physical supply is tightening, industrial demand is exploding. Governments are hoarding. Miners cannot increase production. This is not sustainable. A breaking point is coming. When industries begin to outbid each other, when governments openly restrict exports, when supply cannot meet demand, the world will face a silver crisis unlike anything seen before. Prices won't just rise, they will break. Silver won't just be an investment, it will be a battleground. Part 6. What happens next? The future of the silver siege. Here is what the next stage of the silver siege looks like. 1. Industrial shortages. Solar factories, EV manufacturers, and electronics companies will feel the pressure first. Some will shut down. Some will delay production. Some will move operations to silver-rich countries. 2. Government intervention. Nations will begin prioritizing silver for defense and energy sectors. Civilian supply will drop. Consumer prices will rise. 3. Price volatility. As physical silver becomes harder to obtain, price volatility will explode. 4. The rise of strategic silver zones. Countries with stable silver production, Mexico, Peru, Bolivia, will gain geopolitical importance. 5. The investor awakening. Retail investors will finally notice the shortage. By then, it may already be too late. Part 7. Final warning. The siege has already started. Most people won't believe this until silver is impossible to find, but the signs are already everywhere. Mining output is flat, demand is surging, inventories are collapsing, governments are hoarding, export laws are tightening. This is no longer a prediction. The silent silver siege has begun, and the world is not ready.